Ping I-2 irons. Phil Mickelson pulled out a wedge that was technically older than some of his competitors. The year was 2010, and Lefty was using a grandfathered Ping I-2 wedge with square grooves that spun the ball like it was attached to a string. Back in the 1980s, Karsten Solheim revolutionized iron design with the I-2's square U-shaped grooves. These weren't your typical V grooves. They grabbed the ball from rough lies and generated insane amounts of spin. Too much spin, according to competitors who watched balls dance backward on greens like they had magnets underneath them. In 1989, the USGA declared the I-2's grooves non-conforming, effective January 1st, 1990, for giving an unfair edge. But here's where it gets wild. Solheim didn't back down. He sued both the USGA and PGA Tour. In 1988, Ping challenged the USGA's groove rule, and in 1990, they took on the PGA Tour's ban. The result? A 1993 settlement with the USGA and an out-of-court deal with the PGA Tour, creating golf's strangest loophole. PING, I-2 clubs made before April 1st, 1990, stayed legal in pro play. The 2010 Farmers Insurance Open turned this loophole into a firestorm. Mickelson's wedge, legal but controversial, sparked debates. Is it fair to use 20-year-old tech? Rivals like Scott McCarron called it cheating within the rules. The uproar pushed the USGA to tighten groove rules in 2010, requiring V-grooves for all new clubs with lofts over 25 degrees, though pre-1990 I-2s remained legal until 2024 in most pro events. This lawsuit didn't just save old clubs, it reshaped golf's equipment rules and fueled debates still raging today. Speaking of clubs that looked completely different from everything else, Nike Sumo 2 driver. Nike released a driver in 2006 that looked like kitchen equipment and sounded like a gunshot. The Sumo 2 was square, boxy, and absolutely massive. Golfers nicknamed it the Toaster because that's literally what it resembled sitting behind your ball. Here's why it mattered. Most drivers are shaped like teardrops for a reason. They cut through air smoothly. Nike said screw aerodynamics and made theirs look like a brick. But this weird shape had a secret weapon called moment of inertia, which basically means the club was incredibly stable when you hit the ball off center. Miss the sweet spot? No problem. The Sumo 2 still launched bombs. The club became an instant hit with weekend warriors who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But golf's governing body freaked out. They quickly implemented caps on how stable drivers could be and set strict limits on club head shapes. Nike never got an official ban letter, but the rules changed so fast around the Sumo 2 that its entire design philosophy became illegal overnight. The impact was brutal for Nike's golf division. They'd invested millions in square driver technology, only to watch the rulebook evolve specifically to kill their innovation. The Sumo 2 proved that sometimes being too different gets you regulated out of existence. Nike eventually quit making golf equipment entirely, partly because of disasters like this. But at least the Sumo 2 looked intentionally weird. Some clubs got banned for being accidentally confusing. Callaway ERC2 driver. Imagine buying a car that's street legal in California but gets you arrested in Nevada. That's exactly what happened with Callaway's ERC2 driver in the early 2000s, except with countries instead of states. Callaway engineered the ERC2 with an ultra-thin face that acted like a trampoline. Hit a ball with it, and the face would flex backward then snap forward, launching shots way farther than normal drivers. It was like having a slingshot attached to your golf club. American golfers went crazy for the distance gains, but there was one massive problem. The USGA tested the ERC2 and declared it illegal for having too much spring effect. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Europe's governing body said it was perfectly fine. So you could tee it up in London and bomb drives all day, then fly to New York and face disqualification for using the exact same club. Golfers traveling between continents had to pack different drivers or risk getting kicked out of tournaments. The chaos lasted a couple of years. Professional golfers avoided it entirely because tournament schedules crossed borders constantly. Amateur golfers were confused about which version of golf they were playing. Eventually, both governing bodies got tired of the mess and aligned their testing standards. But the ERC2 remains golf's most geographically confusing equipment disaster. If you're loving this video, subscribe now and help us hit 5,000 golf fans by month's end. This international incident taught golf one lesson. When rule makers can't agree, Everybody loses. Belly putters. Adam Scott was anchoring a long putter against his chest when he won the 2013 Masters. 3 years later, that exact putting stroke became illegal, and Scott had to completely relearn how to putt. Belly putters and broomstick putters weren't your typical putters. They were ridiculously long, sometimes over 4 feet. Players would press the top end against their chest or stomach, creating a pendulum motion that eliminated hand and wrist movement. It was like having training wheels for putting. The stroke was so stable that players started winning major championships with it. Keegan Bradley shocked the golf world by winning the 2011 PGA Championship with a belly putter. Then Ernie Els used one to win the 2012 British Open. Adam Scott followed with his Masters victory. Suddenly, everyone wanted these cheat sticks. But traditionalists went ballistic. Tiger Woods called it not in the spirit of golf, arguing that putting should require skill, not mechanical assistance. The controversy reached a boiling point when the governing bodies stepped in. In 2016, they banned the anchoring stroke. Not the long putters themselves, but pressing them against your body. Players like Scott, Els, and Webb Simpson had to completely change their putting techniques mid-career. Some never recovered their putting confidence. The ban divided golf into 2 camps: purists who celebrated tradition winning, and pragmatists who thought banning successful techniques was stupid. Either way, the belly putter era officially died, taking several careers with it. Some clubs didn't need to perform well to cause problems. They just needed to look ridiculous. Square strike wedge. Late night TV sold a golf club that looked like someone welded a putter to a hockey stick. The square strike wedge promised to eliminate chunked shots around the green, and somehow it actually worked. Traditional wedges have sharp leading edges that can dig into the ground if you hit behind the ball. That's called chunking, and it's every amateur golfer's nightmare. The square strike looked completely different. Wide sole, rounded edges, and a face that resembled a hybrid club more than a wedge. The infomercial claimed you could putt the ball from anywhere around the green without worrying about technique. Here's the crazy part. It technically met every USGA specification. The club wasn't illegal, just weird looking. But when thousands of weekend golfers started using it successfully, golf professionals and equipment companies panicked. They lobbied the governing bodies, arguing that the square strike exploited loopholes in wedge design rules. The USGA responded by tightening wedge specifications. They implemented strict limits on sole width, leading edge curvature, and bounce angles. All because one infomercial club had pushed the boundaries too far. The square strike itself remained legal, but future game improvement wedges faced much stricter design constraints. This proved that you don't need tour professionals to change golf rules. Sometimes a cheesy TV commercial and desperate weekend golfers can rewrite the rulebook just as effectively. Speaking of obviously questionable ideas, one club literally borrowed from a movie, Happy Gilmore Driver. After Adam Sandler's character used a hockey slap shot to crush 400-yard drives, some genius decided to make an actual Happy Gilmore Driver. It was exactly as illegal as you'd expect. The movie showed Gilmore using an impossibly long driver with a severely closed face to combat his massive slice. Club manufacturers, smelling easy money from movie fans, actually produced these things. They featured shafts longer than regulation length, and face angles bent so dramatically that the club looked broken at address. Golf's rules are pretty clear about driver specifications: maximum 48 inches long, now 46 inches, and face angles can't deviate more than 10 degrees from standard. The Happy Gilmore Driver violated both rules spectacularly. Some versions stretched nearly 50 inches and had faces angled so severely closed that they looked like hockey sticks with golf club heads attached. Using one in any official competition meant immediate disqualification. But that didn't stop recreational golfers from buying them by the thousands. Golf shops sold them as novelty items, and driving ranges banned them after too many people launched balls into parking lots and neighboring properties. The Happy Gilmore Driver taught the golf industry an important lesson: movie tie-ins and equipment rules don't mix. It also proved that golfers will buy literally anything if they think it might fix their slice, even if it's completely illegal. But some illegal concepts were way more high-tech than movie props. Smart clubs with electronics. Engineers started embedding GPS units, motion sensors, and gyroscopes directly into golf club heads, promising real-time swing feedback and automatic adjustments. The USGA shut it down faster than you could say artificial intelligence. These weren't just clubs with fancy grips or lightweight materials. They were essentially computers disguised as golf equipment. Some prototypes could measure swing speed, club path, and face angle at impact, then vibrate to give instant feedback. Others used GPS to calculate exact distances and suggest club selection through tiny LED displays on the shaft. The most ambitious designs promised clubs that could actually adjust themselves during your swing. Imagine a driver that automatically opened or closed its face based on your swing path, or irons that changed loft depending on lie conditions. It sounded like science fiction, but several companies were developing working prototypes. The USGA's response was swift and brutal. Absolutely no electronics allowed in club heads during competitive play. Their reasoning was simple. Golf should test human skill, not engineering prowess. Your caddy can use all the technology they want, but your actual clubs must remain dumb. These smart clubs still exist for practice and recreational use, but they're banned from every official tournament. The ruling established a clear line. Golf embraces technology for measuring and analyzing, but the actual equipment must remain purely mechanical. Some bans happened because clubs were too advanced, others because they were just plain weird. Long drivers. Bryson DeChambeau and long drive competitors were hitting balls so far that golf courses couldn't contain them anymore. And in 2022, the USGA said enough and chopped 2 inches off the maximum driver length. For decades, drivers could legally stretch up to 48 inches long. Longer shafts generate more clubhead speed, which means more distance. Basic physics. But when players started routinely flying 350-yard par 4s and turning dogleg holes into straight shots, golf course architects panicked. Courses built in the 1960s suddenly became obsolete. DeChambeau epitomized the problem. His scientific approach to distance included using the longest legal driver possible. Combined with intense physical training and perfect technique, he was hitting drives over 400 yards in competition, making some holes laughably easy. Long drive competitors were approaching 500 yards in exhibitions. The governing bodies realized that golf courses couldn't keep getting longer forever. There's only so much land available. So they capped driver length at 46 inches for elite competition, effective 2022. The change didn't technically ban long drivers, but it forced manufacturers to redesign their flagship models and made thousands of existing drivers illegal for tournament play. The length limit proved that sometimes golf rules change not because equipment is unfair, but because it makes the game itself unsustainable. When technology threatens golf courses' existence, technology loses. But length wasn't the only driver problem golf faced. Alien wedges. A company called Alien Golf promised wedges that made it impossible to shank shots. They were lying, but their weird design still managed to change wedge rules forever. Shanking is golf's most embarrassing mistake. Hitting the ball off the club's hosel instead of the face, sending it shooting sideways at 90-degree angles. Alien wedges featured ultra-wide soles and bizarre weight distribution that supposedly prevented shanks by making it physically impossible to contact the ball with the hosel. The clubs looked like someone had attached boat paddles to golf shafts. The soles were so wide they barely resembled traditional wedges, and the bounce angles were so extreme that the clubs sat on the ground like rocking chairs. Alien marketed them aggressively to high-handicap golfers, desperate for any solution to their short-game disasters. Here's the problem. The wedges didn't actually prevent shanks, and their exaggerated design pushed the boundaries of what constituted a legal golf club. The USGA responded by implementing strict regulations on sole width, bounce angles, and groove spacing, all because Alien's marketing claims had attracted too much attention to wedge design loopholes. Alien wedges faded from the market quickly, but their legacy lived on in tighter equipment rules. They proved that sometimes making bold claims about revolutionary design just gets your entire product category more heavily regulated. Speaking of revolutionary concepts that backfired, brush tee driver. Some brilliant engineer decided that golf balls create too much friction against club faces, so they invented a driver with tiny brush bristles embedded behind the hitting surface. The USGA killed it immediately. The concept seemed logical. If friction slows down ball speed, eliminate friction with brush-like filaments that would bend away on impact. Early 2000s prototypes featured hundreds of tiny synthetic bristles arranged behind the club face, creating what looked like a driver crossed with a scrub brush. Manufacturers claimed the bristles would reduce spin and increase ball speed by eliminating the grabbing effect between ball and club face. Some early testing suggested modest improvements in distance, especially for players who typically generated too much backspin. But the USGA had a simple rule: no moving parts on the hitting surface. Golf clubs must be solid, static pieces of equipment. The brush concept violated fundamental principles about club face integrity. If parts of your club moved during impact, it wasn't really a golf club anymore. The ruling was swift and decisive. Any club with flexible elements, moving parts, or non-solid hitting surfaces was immediately banned from competition. The brush tee driver never made it past the prototype stage, but it established important precedents about what constitutes a legal club face. This decision protected golf from a future filled with springs, hinges, and mechanical assistance devices disguised as traditional equipment. But the strangest bans often came from the simplest rule violations: dual face wedges. Someone invented a wedge with two different hitting surfaces, one for high, soft shots and another for low, running shots. It was instantly illegal, but the concept was so appealing that companies kept trying to sneak variations past the rules. Traditional wedges force you to open or close the face to change shot trajectory, requiring skill and practice. Dual face wedges eliminated that learning curve by giving you two distinct lofts on the same club. Flip it over and your 56-degree sand wedge became a 48-degree pitching wedge. The design made perfect sense for amateur golfers who struggled with short game versatility. Instead of carrying multiple wedges or learning complex face manipulation techniques, you could just rotate the club and hit from whichever side suited your shot. Some versions even featured different groove patterns on each face for varying spin rates, but golf's rules are crystal clear: one striking face per club, period. The USGA doesn't care how convenient or logical your design might be. If it has multiple hitting surfaces, it's not a legal golf club. Any player caught using a dual face wedge in competition faced immediate disqualification. The ban didn't stop manufacturers from trying creative workarounds. Some designed wedges with training aids on the back that technically weren't hitting surfaces but looked suspiciously functional. The USGA kept shutting down these attempts, making it clear that innovation has limits. Even the most obviously illegal clubs taught golf important lessons about equipment boundaries. Thomas Golf alignment irons. Thomas Golf built actual aiming lines directly into their iron heads, claiming they helped golfers set up properly. The USGA said that was cheating, even if the lines never touched the ball. These weren't subtle alignment aids. Thomas Golf literally machined raised rails and aiming bars onto the top lines of their irons. The concept was simple: line up the built-in guides with your target, and you'd automatically have perfect alignment at address. For golfers who struggled with aim, it seemed like a miracle solution. The clubs gained popularity among amateur players who couldn't consistently aim at their targets. Golf instructors were split. Some appreciated anything that helped students improve, while others argued that alignment was a fundamental skill that shouldn't be artificially assisted. The USGA settled the debate by ruling that any club feature designed to help with aiming constituted an artificial aid. It didn't matter that the alignment rails never contacted the ball. Their mere presence violated rules about equipment assistance. Golf was supposed to test human skill, not engineering solutions to human limitations. Thomas Golf fought the ruling, arguing that alignment aids were no different from the alignment marks already allowed on putters. But the USGA held firm. Putters were special cases, and other clubs couldn't include aiming assistance of any kind. The ban established important precedents about where equipment innovation crosses into artificial assistance, protecting golf's emphasis on developing natural skills rather than relying on technological shortcuts. If you love this video, subscribe now and watch our next video showing up now.